Finally, there are some basic formal rules of presenting your case orally. Now, some of these practices may seem outdated to you, but they are still important, at least in the context of a moot court competition. You will need to practice following these rules in the oral rounds so that you are comfortable with them by the time actual competition comes around. You need to find out what the acceptable form of addressing the bench is. This will change depending on the kind of forum the bench is supposed to be. If it is supposed to be an appellate forum in India, then your lordship is acceptable. Others, such as the International Court of Justice or arbitration tribunals, may require a different form of address. Make sure you learn this and practice using it. Similarly, you need to practice referring to your team members as co-counsel or whatever the accepted term for the competition is, and the opponents as counsel for the petitioners, counsel for the applicants, counsel for the respondents, as the case may be. Another formal rule would be your opening line, where you salute the bench and introduce yourself. For example, you can do a small bow and, "If it may please this honorable court, I am B11, the first counsel for the respondents," where B11 is your participant code, is usually acceptable in a domestic moot court competition involving an Indian appellate court. But make sure you learn what would be an acceptable way to do this for your problem and practice doing it. Then, you also need to introduce how you will go about making the presentation. If you are the first speaker for the team, you can tell the bench which issues you will address and which ones your teammate will. It is also good to remind the bench what the relief you are asking for is. Even if you are the second speaker, you could introduce the judges to the issues you will argue, with reference to the page numbers in your written submissions. So make sure that you learn an effective way of introducing your arguments. Finally, you need to learn how to respond to instructions from the bench. If a judge, for example, is satisfied with your answer to a question and asks you to move on to the next issue, how should you respond? A simple, "much obliged, your lordship," works in a domestic law moot. Make sure you find out what is appropriate for your problem and practice it. And with these formal rules of presenting your arguments, we come to the end of this video on preparing for the oral rounds of moot court competitions and this course on the basics of mooting. As we said at the beginning of this course, these are just a set of methods that can quite easily be adopted for a variety of competitions and by people with different aptitudes. But there are obviously other techniques and tips that can work for some of you that are not a part of this course. In that case, we are quite eager to hear from you about what these may be. Please write about these methods and techniques in the forum so that others can learn from your experience of mooting. We hope that you have learned the basics of mooting from this course at least well enough to make you feel confident about taking it up as an activity while you are in the law school. Thank you for watching and thank you for learning.